Domaraju Gukesh has created history by becoming youngest ever world chess champion at the age of 18. Coincidentally, he is the 18th world chess championship champion in history of world championship matches. So 18 is a lucky number for Gukesh, and he did so by defeating Ding Liren in the crucial 14th game or 14th round of the World Championship match being played in Singapore. Reigning world champion Ding made an unexpected error, and just when everybody were expecting the match was heading towards a tiebreaker, Gukesh pounced upon the opportunity and turned the tables. So we shall see how the game went, and finally we shall analyze the ramification or implications of Gukesh becoming the youngest world champion. So let's start analysis right away. Ding was white, and everybody were hoping or predicting that Ding would either win this game or was favorite in the tiebreaker because of his experience. But I had said, you can check my previous video, that anything can happen in chess, and probably Gukesh would repeat the feat of Vishwanathan Anand. Anand had defeated Topalov in the World Championship finals in a similar situation. He was playing black in the last game, and when everybody thought the match was heading towards a tiebreaker, suddenly Anand defeated Topalov and retained his World Championship title. So let's start the game. Ding was white. He played knight f3. Black played d5 and white played g3. White is consistent with his flank opening strategy. And black played c5, bg2, knight c6. Gukesh wants to occupy the center with his pawns. Ding played d4. Well, this is the reversed Grunfeld strategy. Instead, if he castled, it would be reversed King's Indian strategy. Let me explain what reversed King's Indian and Grunfeld means. Well, in the first move, if white starts with d4 and black responds knight f6, c4, g6, well, the other popular move is e6, but if he goes g6, knight c3, here, if black plays bishop g7, allowing white to take the center, and then later contesting the center with e5 or c5, this is called the King's Indian defense. And if black plays d5, challenging the center immediately, challenging white's ambition of playing e4, this is the Grunfeld defense. One of the most common lines against the Grunfeld is white exchanging, bringing the knight on d5, or inviting the knight on d5 and then playing e4, seizing the center. In this case, black exchanges on c3 and then attacks the c3 point with moves like c5, queen a5, later rook c8, bishop g7. In fact, black attacks both c3 and d4 pawns. So this is how black counterattacks white's center, and white tries to somehow keep the center and build up an attack based on that center. So it's a very dynamic imbalance which occurs in the Grunfeld defense. Now here, white played the reversed Grunfeld by playing d4. So as I said, Grunfeld defense is a counter-attacking defense with black pieces. Now this is a mirror version of the Grunfeld. The difference is white is playing the Grunfeld. That means white is an extra tempo up. White is having an extra move, white being white. Now, if black goes for the crucial move like cd, knight d5, e5, white can exchange and play c4 just as he plays in the Grunfeld defense. That is probably better for white because in this sharp position, an extra tempo or an extra move counts. But instead of that, black played simple sober move, which is e6. This move is common at the grandmaster level because black has to defend in the initial moves. So this is a solid option. After white castled, black exchanged, and instead of playing bishop c5, which has been played by many grandmasters, including Pragyananda, but here Gukesh played a very unusual move, that is knight e7. Well, this move looks quite odd at first sight because it blocks the bishop. However, black has a deeper idea, and we shall see what black is aiming at. This knight is not going to stay on e7 forever. It will move very soon, clearing the way for the bishop to develop. White played c4, and already this is a new move. Here, Ding thought for 13 minutes and played c4. Like the Grunfeld defense? Well, black exchanged on d4 and played knight c6, attacking the queen. And the queen went back. So basically what happened is, after d4, these two knights got exchanged. Okay, so if these two knights get exchanged, it's black who gains, right? Because this knight was not a very active knight, and now the bishop can develop. So black exchanged, played knight c6, and played d4. Well, why did he play d4? Because white was attacking, white was threatening this pawn. He could have played dc, but that would allow the bishop to become very strong. Of course, white can easily recapture this pawn, and then this bishop would be very dynamic. So that is why Gukesh opted to keep the position closed. He played d4, and immediately white challenged the advanced pawn by playing e3. Gukesh reinforced, or he developed his piece in such a manner that the d4 square could be strengthened. After ed, black took bishop d4. Well, looking at the position, we already have an imbalance. The imbalance of white having 3-2 majority on the queen side and black having 4-3 majority on the king side. So white has the extra pawn on c file, the c4 pawn is extra, and black has this extra e pawn. The result of this game will depend on who can utilize his imbalance or his advantage more, whether white can advance the queen side pawns or whether black can advance his king side pawns. Another point to note is the d4 square is a strong point for black. That is why he developed his bishop from c5 and put his bishop on d4. He could have gone bishop e7, but d4 is obviously a better square. There is no pawn to push the bishop back. So in this position, white played knight c3. He is developing. And now black has an option. He can continue developing with castles, or he can capture on c3, doubling white's pawns. Well, the pawns are not only doubled, they are also isolated. There is no colleague to defend these pawns. Okay, so it seems black is doing good, but in reality, white has a tremendous compensation for his double pawns. Let's see. If black exchanges and castles, white will, well, what did white get in return for this double pawn? He has got this extra file, and he has got a dark squared bishop, which black doesn't have. So he'll post his bishop on this great square on d6. Okay, the bishop cannot be exchanged with the opponent bishop. And now look at the two bishops. They're working in tandem. White will advance his double pawn and support the d6 bishop. And, well, this is a great position for white. Okay, the b7 pawn will be weak. Black's pieces cannot develop. White is almost winning at that level. Okay, so Gukesh avoided this and he castled. White played knight b5. Now white is threatening to capture the bishop. First, he will remove the defender and then he will take the bishop. So Gukesh retreated, bishop b6. Well, there is a logic behind playing d4. This move could have been played with the idea that when white exchanges, black will have a passed pawn on d4. Remember what passed pawn means? A pawn which is unopposed, which doesn't have an opponent pawn in front of it. Now the pawn, if left unguarded, can simply promote. It can advance. But of course, in middle game, it's not possible. So black will complete his development by playing bishop f5, queen d7, places rooks behind the pawns. And although white has two bishops, he has this dark square bishop, which is quite good. Black has this good, strong passed pawn. So the game would be very dynamic, imbalanced, and chances are equal. But instead of playing e5, he went back, bishop b6. And this is one important moment of the game. So there are quite a few very important moments in the game, and this is one such moment. Here, white played b3, which I do not like, and this is, I believe, slightly anti-positional. Okay, because as I had said previously, that the success of white or black will depend on how they manage their imbalance or their pawn majority. White has to plan to advance the queenside pawns. For that, the bishop should be ideally placed on either f4 or e3, eyeing on the queen side, so that it can help the pawns to advance. Instead, by playing b3 and bishop b2, in fact, from bishop b2, the bishop is aiming on the king side instead of queen side. And it also blocks the b file for the rook. So this is contrary to what white should do. So I don't like the move b3. The best move here would have been to go queen e2 with the idea of playing rook d1 and following up with moves like, say, bishop e3 and advancing the queenside pawns. Okay, one thing to note is white can play knight d6 with the idea of, well, exchanging one of the bishops with his knight and claiming that white has a very nice unopposed g2 bishop. But the problem with this move is black will once again come back to d4. This knight is unsupported. So after the exchange, look at the position. Although white has two bishops, this is a great bishop for white. Black is more developed. And this knight has taken how many moves? 1 move, 2 move, 3, 4, 5 moves to exchange for a bishop which is not yet developed. So although white wins that bishop, but he loses his good knight for a bishop which was undeveloped. So that is why knight d6 is not such a good move. And well, Ding played b3, a move which I don't like. Black played a6, chasing the knight away, and the knight went back. Black placed his bishop once again on d4, and white played bishop b2. Black advanced his own majority. So black is consistent with his plan. But white is not quite sure what he is trying to do. He played queen d2. Black played bishop e6. Well, one idea for black could have been, and probably a slightly better idea than what he played, to go queen a5 with the idea of playing bishop e6, placing the rooks behind and then hitting white's queen side with b5. Now, what is the difference between bishop e6 and queen a5? The move queen a5 basically pins the knight on c3. It's simply a reversal of move order. Next move, he'll play bishop e6 and continue with his development. Instead, Gukesh played bishop e6, which allowed white to post his knight on d5. The previous move, queen d2 by white, had supported the bishop. So after bishop e6, knight d5 is possible. Now black played p5. This is a very interesting move. Basically, he's, well, challenging or undermining the knight on d5. This is challenging the pawn. If the pawn captures, well, black can simply take the knight, or after AB, he is attacking. The knight is unsupported now. Now, here white did play cb5. Now, this is a very important moment of the game. If white really wanted to play for a win with white pieces, if he wanted to create an interesting game, he should have played bishop d4, knight d4, and he should have mirrored or copied black's strategy by undermining the support of d4 knight itself by playing f4. And here actually black had to be very careful not to fall into inferior position. For example, after bc, Rook c8 is a natural move to remove the rook away from the bishop's diagonal. Attacking the pawn, rook c1. Now black has to be careful. He has to protect the pawn by playing f6. He can't do so by playing move like say queen d6. If he does so, white will capture the pawn, and if black takes this, white will not play knight e7 check. Rather, because black also has knight e2 check. Okay, both sides are having similar tricks. Well, white would rather play rook e1, attacking the queen, and the queen can't defend the knight. So the knight is really undermined. That is why black should play f6. And I'll show one line to illustrate the dangers which black may face if it doesn't make the correct moves. Now, queen e3 is a move which piles up pressure upon the e-pawn. And I'll play a series of inferior moves by black. Definitely Gukesh would not have played like this. The best move here is to go queen d6, strengthening the pawn. But if black plays bishop g4 with the threat of knight e2, white can actually capture the pawn. And if white captures the rook, he thinks he will be an exchange up, but white can play this intermediate move, weakening the king. Now the knight has e7, check on e7. And the c1 knight is also, of course, it's hanging. Now if black is greedy and black goes knight e2, then white even has a checkmating idea. Knight check, the king goes to h8. We have fg check, forced, check, forced, check, forced, and checkmate. Of course, black had made many mistakes to reach this position, but this was just a line to show the dangers which black faces if he is not careful. So bishop d4 was a move, bishop d4 followed by f4 was the move which Ding should have played. But here he takes a decision. He wants to play tiebreaker. He is playing for a draw with white pieces. Throughout this match, except in game 12, we have seen Ding Liren play for draw. He's not very confident, and he's always relying on tiebreaker and shorter time formats to win. Well, and that negative attitude is perhaps one of the reasons why Gukesh defeated Ding in this match. He played CB, AB, and then he played knight f4, well, with the intention of capturing this unprotected knight. By doing so, he allowed black to exchange all his pieces, ef, bishop c6, bishop b2, queen b2. White still attacks the rook and pawn, but black played rook b8. And we have a position where it is very difficult to play for a win. So this is almost a draw. White can manage a draw. Well, white played rook d1, black played queen b6. Already we don't have any weakness in black's camp. There is no attack coming anywhere. And it was clear that white is heading for a draw. But if white really wants a draw, he should have even exchanged the bishops by playing bishop d7. Now black is left with no move but to exchange the bishops. But instead he played this move mysteriously. What is white trying to achieve? Well, black exchanged this pawn. We have 3-2 for black, 2-1 for white on the queen side. Here, black played b4. This is a good move because it fixes the a2 pawn. Black has to be slightly careful. He has to defend this b4 pawn, but he can defend it quite easily. And, well, this is a very important moment. White could have played queen d4. He could have played rook d4, rook d3, any move. He could have activated this rook by doubling, but instead he went for a4. Now, this is a psychological blunder. Well, the game is still objectively drawn after this move, but psychologically, he tells Gukesh that I am begging for a draw. Please liquidate all the pawns on the queen side. I'm willing to exchange all the pawns. I'm willing to give up my queen side pawns, and I will draw with 2 against 3 on the king side. So even the slightest or faintest chance which Ding had at this point of capturing this pawn is lost after white exchanges. Now black's only weakness on b4 is dissolved. It has evaporated. So that way, now, although white has a passed pawn on b3, it can never advance. Okay, and this is a weak pawn. So white decided, black played g6. The players are getting ready to play for a draw. And suddenly Ding says, okay, take my pawn. So he's sacrificing his only hope, the queen side pawn. Black can actually exchange on d4 and accept the pawn sacrifice. This is still draw, but only black can play for a win, if anybody. White has absolutely zero chance. But white plays queen d4, which is actually quite unexpected. And black says, no, I will not accept the pawn. I'll keep my queens. But white begs, please take my pawn. He places the pawn on b4 without any support. And black finally says, okay, let's play this endgame. White goes for piece exchanges, which is understandable. After exchanging pieces, okay, we reach this endgame, which is objectively drawn. Yesterday we had, in the game 13, we had exactly 3-2 on the king side with Ding defending, the same as today. And that was a rook endgame. The game was drawn without any trouble. But now we have rook and bishop. Well, if white wants to draw, he has to either exchange the bishops. Rook endgames are drawn with 3 against 2. Or he can also exchange the rooks. Bishop endgames are drawn. But the only thing which he should not do is exchange the rooks and bishops, because king pawn endgames with an extra pawn in these type of positions are very easy win. Win for the player having an extra pawn. So white has to avoid double piece exchange. Let's see how the game went. White kept on waiting and black kept on improving his position. White offered the exchange of bishops, black declined. And white activated his rook, black defended the pawn. White offered the rook exchange, black declined. And both sides were shuffling pieces. Black was gradually improving his pawns. He was advancing his pawns. And well, these moves are not so important, but just to show you that black was advancing his pawns and white was simply waiting. Okay, here white attacked the rook, black went here, white placed his bishop on b7, and black played king g5. So gradually black has brought up his pieces and pawns. If white does not do anything, black may at some point keep on advancing. The only hope for black is if he manages to get f4. First he will play, well, first he will play f4. After the exchange, bring up his king. Maybe the king can come all the way up, and then he will advance the remaining pawns and create some mating chances against the white king. So, well, white has plenty of chances not to allow this happen. But this is the only glimmer of hope which black has. And what white did, he played a very nice move. And this is the only move which I like for Ding in this game. He played f3 to exchange one set of pawns. If you are behind in material, remember, when you are trailing in material count, you must exchange pawns so that your opponent is left with fewer pawns to promote. And if you are winning, you should exchange pieces so that your opponent does not have counterplay. So, well, after f3, black played f5. If he goes gf and white takes bishop f3, this is a dead draw. White has built a sort of fortress. A fortress is a position where black is unable to advance. He is unable to advance with his king because both pawns and bishops are controlling all these 4 squares. and also the rook. So black will be unable to advance. The only thing he can do is exchange another set of pawns, and the game is even more drawish. So this was a good move by white, and black played f5. After exchange of pawns, we have another position which is almost a draw. This is almost like a fortress because black is unable to, well, some checks and the players kept repeating moves. White played rook a4, rook b2. He placed his bishop on a8, which is not a good idea. If the bishop is placed on any other square except h1, let's say if it is placed on c6, white's bishop has, well, different directions to move. It can move here, it can move here, it can go up, it can go down. But with the bishop on a8, it has only one direction. Bishop has only access to this diagonal. That's all. So in general, if you have options, do not place your pieces in the corner. But white did. And, well, black, both the players repeated positions. We have this position. This is a position which will be remembered in history of world chess. Okay, till Gukesh remains, or his name remains as the youngest world champion, the whole world will remember this position because here Ding made a historic blunder. Well, in this position, it is very difficult to find a winning plan for black. The reason is the king cannot advance. If black king cannot advance, there is no way how black can improve his position. He can't capture the pawn because the moment he tries to attack this with moves like rook b3, white can play and defend easily with his king. And I can't see how actually black can make progress. If he exchanges pieces, the game is drawn. I mean, one set of pieces. So here white offered to exchange the rook, but it was a blunder. Blunder because not one, but two sets of pieces were exchanged. And this is the only hope which black was having. In bishop endgames, this is a draw. If the bishop were placed here, black cannot force exchange of the bishop and the game would be drawn. But after bd5, we have a classic king pawn endgame, a very instructive endgame for all, which you must remember. Here, white is forced to take this, and after this, after one move, white resigned. Well, why did white resign? In this position, white resigned. Well, let me show you the possible variations which can happen here. In this position, suppose king e2, king e4. If it is black to play, actually the game is drawn because white has the opposition. Both the kings are standing opposite to each other, and the player who moves not loses, but if white moves, black wins. If black moves, white is successful in holding a draw. Now, this is a position which white should aim for. A move king e1 was very instructive move here. After king e1, what should black play? I mean, if you are new to chess, this is one of the very, very instructive positions you should remember. If black goes king e4, white can achieve the same position with king e2. It is black to play, and black is unable to make any headway. White's king simply follows the black king. Okay, if black plays f4, then white will exchange the pawns, and this 1 against 0 is a dead draw. It's known to all of us. So king e1, instead of king e4, black should play king e5. This is distant opposition. So basically the kings stand opposite to each other, but on same color, on the same file. So if the king is on dark square, black also stands on dark square. And now wherever white goes, black will mirror the same position with white to play. Now if white goes here, black's king will enter and capture the second pawn. If white goes here, the king will go to d3, and finally black will succeed in capturing the g3 pawn. Well, against any such moves, let me show you. King f1 and with white to play, he will finally lose this pawn. So here, if the king goes to d2, black will follow by playing king d4, and we have the same position with white to play, black winning. In this position, if white plays king f2, now this is quite important. Since black is unable to play king f4, he should play king d4. This is also a position, the king standing opposite to each other diagonally. This is called diagonal opposition, after which when white plays king e2, black will once again play king e4, winning. So this is quite elementary. Of course, Ding knew this, and after king d5, he played king e2 and resigned. So this way, well, Gukesh became the youngest ever world champion. Before finishing this video, let us ponder upon the implications of Gukesh winning the world championship. Well, in the first press conference after Gukesh became world champion, he showed his maturity, his dignity, and his greatness by answering all the questions in such a manner. I have never seen a player who is as matured and as dignified as Gukesh. The first thing he did is he praised Ding, the losing world champion, and he gave full compliments to Ding. He said, without him, his resistance, I couldn't have played so well. And he said Ding deserved to be world champion. He played very well in the match. The second thing, all the questions he answered was very well, very well presented. And what I can say is the gist of what he said was, this was just the beginning of his career. So having won the world championship at the age of 18, he says that he will have many great years in future, and he will present us with many more instructive and memorable events. He has to prove that he is the best in the world. Of course, he has already proven by winning gold medal in Olympiad in 2 consecutive occasions, having won the candidates and then winning the world championship. He is already the greatest player. But there are pundits who still say Magnus is the best player of the world. So I hope Gukesh will very soon prove that he is even stronger than Magnus. And time will come. He is only 18 now. And the final word which I would like to say is, Gukesh is a great ambassador for chess. His personality, his poise, and his responses are so great that I think under him, chess will certainly grow to a new level. So with this, congratulations, Gukesh. And as for Ding, well, another very important lesson to learn from the whole World Championship match. Players at top are almost equal players if you just compare their strength. And the same happens at every level. At your level, you may have many of your rivals who are equivalent. But the winner is the player who has a better mindset. Throughout the World Championship match, we have seen Gukesh playing for a win, avoiding draws, and basically, he was much more spirited than Gukesh. Gukesh was always playing negative chess. Ding was playing negative chess. He was trying to take the game, steer the game, the entire match towards tiebreaker, where there will be more chances for him to win. Now, with this positive frame of mind, Gukesh managed to win. So the lesson is always have the correct mindset, and that is very important for our success. So thanks all of you. Thanks for staying with me. And we shall meet in the next videos about the chess champions, and I shall be creating videos, instructive videos in future. So stay tuned and keep following this channel. Goodbye.